I'm curious about how you've sort of figured out the nuance of going wide and going deep, and keeping it all together.
Yes, well, the keeping it all together is something I'm always working on. So we can talk about that a little bit later. It's been a journey. I haven't always, sometimes I've been too deep in the work and you don't get to lift your head and really watch over everything that you're responsible for. But I think it's also building a team. So a lot of it is not trying to be everything to everyone, but build a team of people that feel empowered to own and go deep and to tell you when they need you and know when they need you, and then pick those few clients or few opportunities that you really lean into and you learn from too. I mean, I think what I really enjoy about my job is that there's always opportunities for me to learn new things and to venture into new areas. Recently, I'm part of one of our leadership development programs, and I've never coded in my 20 years. And last year I got a Raspberry Pi and I made an Alexa app. And this year I learned how to code a very, very simple app, but it was all great stuff that, just kind of moved my mind in a different way, made me understand a little bit more some of the work that my team does, and allowed me the ability to lean in a little differently.
What advice would you give to someone who's kind of caught up in that cycle of keep your head down and work and hopefully someone will notice?
Yeah, I think there's been a couple of things I've done through the years. When I was working in the strategy practice, I didn't want to get stuck just thinking about the work from one lens when you work for one manager. And so that's when I searched out a few different other people to work for. And it wasn't my regular work. It was stuff I did on the side. So it was additional stuff. It wasn't stuff that was billable, because it's a big thing in consulting to be billable. But I think what I've done throughout is always searched out things that, I had some intellectual curiosity and I felt I could contribute. And, through my Sapient career, I've had moments where things have fallen on my lap that have been really exciting, like working in this leadership program. And then I've had moments where I've searched things out where, I felt, okay, I'm stuck, in this client and I'm not really bringing out all the things that I could be bringing back to the company. At one point, I brought my boss a strategy for the business that just as an input to what he was working on. And I worked on it all on my own. I didn't, ask for permission. I just went, put it together and said, I'd love to share it with you if you're interested. And he took pieces of it. And then that really forged a much more deeper relationship because he saw my compassion about the business and my intention about the business. So I think look for those things that excite you, where you see you can make change, and find those people, search those people out, and make sure too that when you're working with people that someone doesn't hold you back. If you have a boss that is, very focused on you having to go to them to get permission to go to someone else, think twice about how you're going to navigate around that. And I think you can work very, very closely with your boss to help you, expand in the organization, because that's our responsibility as leaders, is to help people grow in an organization.
How have you successfully moved your ideas forward?
So most of it has been by example. Because sometimes in the room, when you say something, they can't conceptualize it. So you have to create a concept or a prototype for them to understand how it could work. So one of the advantages I have in the business that I run within our company is that I have almost like a microcosm to test and learn. And I've used that as a way to say, look, over here, we did this. This is what we didn't do well. This is what we need to do well. This is why I think as an organization, we need to do this, and we can actually elevate what we did. So sometimes in the room, the words don't necessarily make the impact, but I'll go back and I'll say, okay, if I really want to see this move forward, what's the path to show people that it can work? And it's a longer path. Sometimes it's easier to say, okay, we need to do this and be adamant about it. And you can try that route. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And the times it doesn't, don't feel like it's done. There's always a way to go back and make a case for whatever ideas you have. And you'll see, if you're in an organization year over year, the same problems keep coming up and same solutions. And you have to constantly be pushing what you think is right. And over the years, sometimes some of what you think is right changes, and you have to own that as well.
Share with us kind of your view of or your own evolution of becoming really effective at business development, influencing the deal making, and being able to sort of be responsible for revenue generation and have the confidence for it when in many ways it's the opposite profile of what people's perception is.
Well, I think we all know when someone is selling something and they're really excited about the product or they're committed to the product, then they sell it very well because it's authentic. And I think going back to that idea of being authentic is selling, if you're selling something to a client because they want it and you see revenue from it, you're not going to be successful. Either you're not going to deliver it successfully or you're not going to sell it right. But if it's something that you see is really going to fundamentally change their business, or it's something they need in the moment that you can help them with and you're going to get excited about, then it makes the sale easier. And you shouldn't think of it as a sale. You should almost think of it as a partnership, that you're helping to bring someone something they're gonna see value in. Obviously, they're gonna pay for that, but they're gonna see value in it for the dollars that they're paying. And I think that if you wrap your head around that value equation of you providing value, them not just seeing it as an expensive way to do X or to get X, it changes the dialogue. And I think that going back to the idea of being a strategist, if it truly fits into the right things that they need to be doing for their business, you're selling them the right things.
How do you approach decision making, and what helps you have the conviction to follow through in the absence of perfect information?
So there's really sort of two pieces to it. There's the one where, it inherently, a lot of times what's right, and you might be hearing from other people what they think is right. It might not align to what you think is right. You really need to have the confidence in what you feel is right. The few times I've been in situations where I've questioned what I thought was right and went with what someone else did in making a decision, something went wrong. And what over the years I've kind of unpacked is that I wasn't ready for when something went wrong. So I sort of took whatever that other person said as this is the right way to do it and this is the right decision to make. And I didn't think about like the plan B.
Mm.
So even if I have a gut feel that I feel something is right, that I should be going in this direction, I should be, putting this individual on this piece of business, or we should go into this relationship with a client and, the parameters, defining the parameters the right way. I always plan for what if it doesn't go right? Am I going to be okay with that? And how am I going to feel? And then what am I going to do about it? Like, what are the different ways that it could go wrong? So that in my decision, I know what decision I'm making.
Mm.
Sometimes it's easy to say, the right answer, but sometimes you don't really evaluate the risk. So overall, just take time to think about the risks in the decision, but don't let it hold you back from making a quick decision, because you can actually manage the risk once you've made the decision too. You just need to make sure you're ready for it, that you're on the edge. And COVID's a perfect example. We've got we don't know what's going to happen in the fall. We want to be there ready for our clients no matter what the situation is. So, hoping and working with them on what is now hopefully a recovery, but
Yeah.
not knowing things could change. The economy could change even more drastically than it has right now. So getting our teams to think about that is something that I'm working on, so that we're prime and ready to help them whatever decision they decide to make, and
Hmm.
where we can make those decisions with them.
What about a scenario where a decision you made did go wrong, and like there was massive failure and it was because of a decision you made? W- Walk us through what that was like. How did you deal with it? What did you learn from it?
Yeah, there's it's been a lot. So I've got a whole bag of tricks to pull out on this one. But one that was really interesting for me and how I reacted and how I managed through it was, we had a piece of business that we were struggling to deliver, and we had signed for like a full another year. And so when I did my planning for the next year, I included it in. I felt like there might not be growth, but I was pretty sure we were going to be doing the same work. And then the company ended up getting bought. And because the client already had another partner they were using for this when they got bought, they ended our contract within like 30 days. So that really set up the next year for a complete like disaster. There was no way I could recover. I didn't have a pipeline. I didn't have, I couldn't reallocate people. And so I had to find a way to like recover from that sort of as a leader. I also had to make sure the leaders on my team who were part of that team didn't feel like they were at a loss.
Mm-hmm.
And so we focused on profitability for the year. And we actually were able to hit our profitability number. And we did much better than I thought on our revenue number, but because the team wasn't just solely focused on filling the hole and the gap, we looked kind of bigger out a year. I said, this next year is going to be tough. Let's plan for a year out. Let's focus on profitability right now. And so we had success. And I think one of the things, we're learning as leaders within our organization right now, and I'm learning specifically, is that you got to find ways for people to feel like they're winning, even if you have a failure. So that's what I had to do personally. And that's what I had to do for my team as a leader as well.
Tell us your personal philosophy about, the traits and the attributes you look for as you're building your team. Something that's uniquely your point of view, and how you go about thinking about who you want to bring in. What do you want that team mix to feel like, and not just in terms of skills, but overall, how do you design teams?
So there's a few pieces of it. I want people to have fun, and I want them to learn and sort of enjoy the day to day, like get excited. I think a lot of people right now, it's been really hard because I haven't been able to be together and enjoy sort of a meal together, or, go out after work or even go for lunch. But I think even just virtually, people are finding ways to have fun. And I think that's a big thread of how you bring a team together. And you do that by really looking for a diverse set of folks. You have to find people who don't all think the same, because they might have fun, but they won't learn. And so it has to be a combination of both. It's been interesting for me because we've had so many changes in our organization that I've had to constantly like redesign my team and bring, new people come in, and I want to make sure that they feel like they're part of the team. It's very hard when you're in a different organization and you get put with another organization. You want to be part of something. So I think that's a big piece of it too, is like putting together, smaller teams where everyone feels they're part of a bigger whole.
Right.
And I've been learning a lot around communication over the last couple of years. Like sometimes you take your foot off the gas just to give people room so they don't feel over communicated and they can kind of come into their own. And sometimes you got to really overemphasize the communication and how you make sure your people see your intent in trying to bring those teams together.
What are some of the common traits you see in the most successful leaders that are inspiring, not just successful from a P&L standpoint, but truly inspiring, great leaders? What are some of the common attributes?
They're not afraid to make bold moves and make mistakes and then recover from those mistakes. And I think that's when you look at people out there right now, it's very easy to think you have to follow a recipe, but there's really no recipe anymore. And it can be defined by where you want to take a company and how you develop the purpose of what that company ultimately is going to be, or what it is today and need to evolve to. So, when I see leaders that are purposeful, that, are change their mind and do it in a big way in some of these larger organizations, just the ability to put a product out there and say, this isn't working, and take the product off the market or close stores or just reconfigure an organization. That to me is what it means to be a leader right now.
How did you gain proximity to those leaders, and how would you counsel someone in that, let's say in their early to mid career, and should they be approaching senior leaders? And if so, how do they approach them? And how can they create meaning, not just feel like, hey, I'm there to get their autograph, right?
Right. Well, early days when I first started Sapient, one of my first clients was a CIO of a manufacturing company, and we were having dinner as a whole team with him. And of course, we were somewhat intimidated by the fact that he was the CIO, and we were doing a very large project for him. And he said, everyone puts their pants on the same way. And I think if you think about it that way, that everyone is human, and a
Mhm,
lot of these folks really appreciate when they talk to someone who's very smart, who cares about their business or cares or is interested in some of the things that they're doing.
mhm,
At any stage of your career, someone is senior, even if you're at the same level as them, there's still some level of intimidation because you want to make sure you're giving to them. I think that's an important piece, is not just because they're senior, you're not only going to learn from them, they're going to learn from you, and know that you can bring a lot of insight to them at any stage of your career.
mhm,
And I learned that also early on. I was in one strategy meeting with one of the partners back when I was at Ernst & Young, and I went into a meeting and he was presenting, so I didn't feel like I needed to say anything. And at the end of the meeting, he said, you really need to be prepared to say something.
mhm.
And so throughout my career, I've always made sure when I'm in a meeting, I try to say something. Now, sometimes it's not right and you don't do it, but always be prepared with, some things where you're going to provide value that's additive, and that feels authentic.
What do you wish you had learned earlier in your career?
Um, it really comes down to confidence. I think you just need to realize that, you're constantly learning. Everyone around you is constantly learning. In this world that we live in, even the most senior people are figuring it out.
Mm,
So it's not a pecking order type thing. And so if there's things you don't know, that's okay. But know what you don't know
mhm.
and not think you know everything. And gain the confidence to have a voice in situations where, it's not always easy. And you'll make mistakes and it's okay.
From your vantage point, what do you see, in terms of the biggest trends that will impact business, and specifically from the context of what opportunities emerge that women should be conscious of?
So from a digital perspective, I think the sky's the limit for opportunity. I think, whatever your passion is, whether it's marketing, whether it's finance, whether it's operations, there's going to be so many new ways for you to embrace the future.
Mhm,
And I think no matter what your personal situation is, there's opportunities to be a leader,
mhm,
whether it's owning your own business or being part of an organization. I think you're a perfect example of that, of how you've gone from working for a few companies to building your own company to building yet another company, and just finding ways to add value back to the world. But I think ultimately you got to find something you're passionate about. And if you just sort of find something that you think you're supposed to do, or you got a degree in, I have an English major degree. I thought I was going to be a lawyer. That's the part I didn't tell about, and turned up going to business school. And you just kind of have to let your dreams evolve over time, and find those moments in this very exciting space right now. Like this, I
mhm.
feel the sky's the limit.